Video, we're going to talk about why people uh, believed certain things were fake, both in the new market and the used market, and how and why in the thrift store and the international gemstone market, they will never be able to, and the antique store market, they'll never be able to fully filter things, even with AI. First thing, there is no such thing as items that are not one of a kind. There will always be items that are one of a kind. For AI to be 100% effective with filtration, an item has to be out there. There has to be more than one of it. So that's not a thing. The next thing is there's a lot of variations in how items are marked. So even with Goodwill's things, there's examples. So like recently, I bought this at Goodwill. This is a gold pendant. It's Art Deco from the 1920s, and it's marked right there. The gold is marked very tiny, so tiny that a normal loop won't catch it. A normal, you would need a special magnification to see it. Even jeweler's glasses won't see it typically. And it's faded, very faded, and it's a very soft metal. None of these are exactly alike, and this whole style is copied so much that there are 50 similar variants of this that are costume for every real variant that's in platinum or gold. And they were either platinum or gold, or they were costume. And it was a very common variant, and they were all very similar, but they were usually not exactly alike. Like we'll have leaves there or flowers there, and they were never exactly alike. And I bought that for $1.99 at a Goodwill, which has probably the best filtration of any thrift store chain on the market as far as keeping things that are real jewelry wise from getting on the shelf. And that's probably a $400 piece. It's very hefty, it's gold, it's very old. It's almost 100 years old, and it's signed. We also have another example from a Goodwill. This is a amber silver signed piece, $3. It has a faded silver mark. It's on the back of the clasp, on the back, not the clasp, but on the back of the pendant. And it stayed there for almost a month. I didn't buy it at first because I have so much stuff, and I've been wanting to get rid of it. I'm not a reseller. I'm more of a collector. I have very specific things that I'm keeping. I'm selling a lot of this. She is rather. And I have a very small set of things that I'm actually keeping. And then it has a small signature on one of the rings from the person that made it. This is probably, if without the signature being good, this is probably 80 to 100-ish. If the signature is good, it could be a bit more. That's an example of how very small things in the markings can be. The markings can also be hidden. This is a pin, and on the back, behind the clasp, there is a 10 karat marking. And this is 10 karat gold. I paid $10 for this. This is a very old one. It has two natural Colombian emeralds and a natural diamond. And it's a D if you turn it one way and an A the other way. It's actually the logo for a manufacturing company. This was when this was much more economical to do. So it has my first name, regular, and my nickname, the other way. I'll probably keep this one. This one, because the stones are natural, because of what they are, and the factors involved, this is a few $1,000 piece because those emeralds are very clean. Without a Gardene and an emerald, that is unheard of. And that will go into another issue that we'll talk about that talks about people's biases. And then we'll talk about the pawn shop factor in this involvement. One of the only ways they can get things appraised. This is an emerald. And this is not a horrible emerald. This is also an emerald on my ring, although I didn't get that at the thrift store. I bought that on the international market and I set that myself. This is actually a really good emerald. But this is not a bad emerald. I bought this at a thrift store for about $1. But it's a silver pendant though. And the silver is marked very small. Those are actual diamonds. It's silver in color, but they wouldn't even think the silver would be real. I mean, look how included that is. But they call that a Gardene. And probably less than 1% of emeralds don't have, probably 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 100,000 emeralds don't have a visible Gardene. It's so rare to not have a visible Gardene that, to me, as someone that collects gems, seen them around the world, I am very suspicious that it's fake if I see one without a Gardene. If it looks like it's glass, I kind of think it is. This is worth a lot more than you think. But the people that don't know about this type of thing, the pawn shop people in a small town, typically, usually, maybe not always, the people that work in a thrift store, maybe not always, they think that it's a piece of resin that's green in color and a cheap chain. And that's where the bias goes. But it's actually a very nice piece of jewelry. Another thing is how small. This is another silver one. And it could be white gold too, by the way. It could be platinum. White metal doesn't mean silver. It doesn't mean fake. And anyway, very small diamonds, very small emerald. But it was $1. And it's worth a lot more than $1. Let's see, what else do we have here? We talked about amber, right? Amber feels plasticky. This is something you just want to make sure there's no seam. You're looking for inconsistencies in the size and shape of every bead. And you're looking for imperfections. The bubble shouldn't be the same. You're looking for little pieces of debris that don't look the same. But it should feel like almost like a resin. It shouldn't feel too rubbery. It shouldn't feel too hard. It shouldn't feel like a rock. Because how they mine for amber is they use rakes in the Baltic Sea. In fact, there's a source that I have, and a lot of his in the Baltics, and he makes things out of. He made me some dice from it. He has an address in Lithuania, and he makes things out of amber, and that's the people where he gets his amber from. That's where they get a lot of their amber from, is they use rakes, and it'll float to the top because it's so light that it will go to the surface and float on the water in the Baltics. So it's not a heavy thing. And the other thing is that when we talk about how small things are, is that there's also the stamps can be so small, and sometimes people think, well, there's something after the metal, it must be fake. Well, sometimes it could be the branding. This is a 14 karat ring, and there's diamonds in these garnets, and it's 14 carats. I paid $2 for it. That was an easy $1,000. It could be some things that are older, the stamps are worn off, like this, paid $1 for it. It's gold, Art Deco. Sometimes it's wore off. Sometimes it's so old that they didn't always use stamps. That's another thing. This was a $2 diamond ring because it was silver. They thought there's no way there's going to be diamonds in it. Not always. And sometimes it looks weird because when they used to start doing pave, they super glued things in. And you got to be careful with that. If you pay full price in cash, I don't recommend it. But would they? Yeah, they would. Yeah, they would. I've seen it many times. Be careful how you clean it. Use a toothbrush. These are turquoise, and they're signed. They're earrings, nice color. Paid 80 cents for them. They're sterling. They're signed from the res. These are a nice thing. They're complicated to price, but I can tell you they're a lot more than 80 cents because that type of turquoise you can't get anymore. These are something that most people would miss because they're marked sterling, and that tells me that there's a good chance you already can tell by the style that they're from before 1974. But around that time we stopped using sterling a lot. We started using 925. But just like how we stopped in 1931, we stopped using 12 karat gold. We started using 14 karat gold, and we also stopped using 15 karat gold. But those are little stones, and they're cabochons, and this sterling, and this is Art Deco, and I have a pair of these, and most people think those are glass or whatever, but no, these are real Art Deco metal stone earrings. I paid 50 cents for them. I would say somewhere between probably 100-ish bucks. They're amethyst, so not big money, but big enough. They're vintage, almost antique. Real stones. This I paid $1 for. Real ruby, real diamonds, platinum. Yeah, probably almost $3 grand. If it's Burmese, I was having a hard time in the microscope to confirm that, but I can say that it's not a synthetic based on what I could see, because this is not irradiated. Now, one thing about diamonds, when you start looking at them, you can't assume if it's in silver that if it's a colored stone, or in general if it's a diamond, that it's a man-made or that it's been treated just because it's a larger stone or that it's colored. Because remember that the cutting of diamonds properly is a 130-year-old thing. The round brilliant cut is like 1919 plus, and the popular use of diamonds is post World War II. When De Beers started to sell them. So up until like the 1950s, late 1950s and 1960s, the diamonds, there was still a lot of use. So became very much, the more expensive diamonds became much more exclusive in gold and platinum probably around in the 1960s. So you have a lot of things up and through the 1950s that were in silver and stuff, and even really up until the 70s there were some that were really good stones, and especially when you're talking about some of the natural included blues and sometimes even blues and yellows that were up into the 70s, like this one here, and this one has boron in it. In fact, this is one of the rare, like 10% of blues that fluoresces under black light. I left my black light in my jacket to show. It's a cool thing, and it's actually cool because you can see that it has aluminum and boron in it, and it's one of the coolest things because it's something that you can show to someone and it's like instant. You can see it when you look under the loupe, and then you see the carbon in it, and you put it on your tester, and it's like, wow, you can actually show that in real time, and any jeweler or any gemologist and they can see it and they know. Um, and this one, like when you're looking at diamonds, speaking of that, you can see you can't really until you look closer. There's diamonds in this, and it's silver, and this is, it's something you wouldn't think, but it is. And that's another thing is that, and what you have is that you have, and diamonds are not always expensive. You have lower quality ones. They'll call them rose cut. A lot of times that's a misnomer because a lot of times what it is they're just lower quality cut. They're not even lower quality diamonds always. Sometimes they are. Sometimes it's a mix of lower quality cut, lower quality. Sometimes there's good quality ones in there within them, and it's a mix of stuff. They just didn't have enough. But it's complicated. This one, they're actually all good quality cut. They're just in silver, and they're not lab. And it's a cool pendant. And I only paid $4 for it. And this is the cool thing about this pendant is the chain, and this is where they screwed up at the thrift store. The chain is silver, but the pendant is platinum. So they really missed the ball. So I actually bought something really expensive because probably the original thing broke or they bought it separately, and it happens a lot. Somebody can't afford to replace one part that they got as a gift. And this is another one, garnets, gold, $2. A lot of really nice ones, and they're clean because garnets are usually not super clean. A lot of stones aren't. So if you get a lot of them, if they're larger ones and they're garnet and they're clean, and the red ones are usually not valuable. But if you get other colors, the green garnets, and green garnet is one of the colors that's very valuable. I have some Zavarites that I've been holding on to. They're larger ones, and I have some smaller ones. I have a 14 karat Zavarite that I've been holding on to. Jade. I'll show you some jade. These jade earrings. This is jadeite, and they have platinum studs hold them together. I bought these for $2. These are worth thousands of dollars because they're translucent. Jadeite is crazy expensive, and inside a lot of Western markets, most people are just completely clueless about it. This jade bangle is not that translucent, but this thing's easily hundreds of dollars. And this type of stuff gets missed because it looks glass or plasticky. And if you find, they can be worth thousands, and the people they'll think it's glass. And if you hear that distinct sound, that's one of the ways you know it's jade. Like, you know how people can tell, like, Bakelite, how it sounds? If you feel it's cold and it starts making that noise, there's a very good chance when you hit your presidium tester, it's going to be some type of jade. And it can be in different colors. Like, I have jade that's in all kinds of colors, reds. A lot of it, if it's not dyed, it's probably not super valuable. If it's not dyed, it's probably it's good money, very much. And then stones can be in different metals you wouldn't think. Like, they don't necessarily have to be. These are very valuable rubies, and they're in copper, and it's because of the astrology. So this was missed because the person at the thrift store said there's no way they could be valuable. They're in copper. Think again. They're an astrological type thing, and it's because in certain cultures, because people in these cultures do have very large amounts of money, believe it or not. Just because you're in a Midwest town that's been agricultural or industrial for a long time, it doesn't mean that all immigrants or all people in other countries are very poor. Some of them have insane amounts of wealth, and they can buy, they have billions of dollars, and they may spend money on things like that. This is something I bought today. and this is tested. I paid $20 at an antique store, and I could tell the way this felt and looked. This, I thought this was a garnet, and I paid $20. And usually I don't pay that much for something, but the garnet was good size, and even having that type of surface on the garnet, like a pyro garnet, that's not that unusual. And then I was looking at where the wear was through the metal, and they were thinking, well, they were going to get someone because it's not really silver. And I'm looking at, I bet this is supposed to be rhodium plated, and it wore off. And the more and more I'm looking, I'm going to have to acid test it, but I'm willing to bet that this is gold. And there's what appears to be a fake stamp for a maker in here, and the letters don't line up right. I've never seen that maker not have the letters line up right. So I'm going to bet once I get all that off, it's going to turn into being gold. This is an example. Ruby is often imitated. This is a spinel. And when you go into markets, gem markets with rough, they have all kinds of stone. And my guess is they thought they were buying something else to imitate the ruby, and the people selling it thought that it turned out to be spinel. I tested it. It's 120 carats. I have some that are like 84s, and they're naturals, and they turn out. And during COVID, this was happening because they're probably loose on their inventories, what they had lying around that they were trying to sell and make money. And some things were from the States and things, and that's big money. They miss things. People do this with like peridots and garnets, if you've been in these markets and you've seen how this happens, and these people they sometimes get educated by things. This happened because probably somebody was fetching aquamarine, and instead they grabbed out of a bin, they grabbed Paraíba tourmalines. And they have the right content. And there's little Paraíbas, and they went into the wrong setting. So when a metals place went out of business, I bought this for $6, and it has Paraíbas in it. That's how that happened. And you have things like these. I noticed trichroism. These, when I bought them for $1, they changed from they were pink when I bought them. They went purple, and then they would go blue. And they have a raised bezel, so they had a bezel instead of prongs for the little flowers in them. And they're silver from a thrift store, and they have a small marking on them. And I thought, I started thinking they're tanzanite. That's a big buy. Tanzanite's not cheap. There's a lot of little tanzanites in it. And to get all of those cuts right, all those color right, that's very hard to do on this stuff. Now this one, they thought this was just a bangle. And I saw the little clasp in it, and I realized that this is actually a bracelet. And I realized this is heavy for its size, and I realized it's platinum. And I looked it up, and this is a Deco era platinum bracelet with a covert clasp. This is how this type of stuff happens, and it's all over the place. And you see now, it's impossible. And there's always gonna find this stuff. You just have to learn the trick. You gotta get your loupe. You gotta get your black light, so you learn how to see things like chromium in the stone fluorescing. You see things under magnification. You got to learn how the numbers and the hallmarks versus just like the 14 karat. You got to learn what all these things look like and do your homework. And we'll cover this. We'll learn about the luxury items. We'll learn about the antiques. We'll learn about the brands. We're going to have a lot of fun.